I want people to know that if they feel deep pain, if they've had traumatic experience after traumatic experience and maybe feel cursed or feel like there's not hope or things aren't going to get better, that A, they're not alone. B, we always have choice. We always have choice when we're grown, once we're grown up. And we can change the trajectory of our life after bad things have happened. I met what I thought was a safe adult, and this adult provided a sense of love and belonging for me. They are pretending to be a safe, caring person that cares about you and loves you so that they can steal from you. There's good people in the world who have integrity, who have real love, who will love you back together in a healthy way. You're going to get big and you're going to be free and you're going to be happy and you're going to be safe. We can't love others. We can't let others love us if we're not able to let them know us and allow them to do the same. I am not what I'm thinking. My thoughts are separate from who I truly am. And who I truly am is the same person that came out of the womb at 0 days old. Defeated mindset is, oh, everything's happening to me still today. Poor me. All these things are happening to me. I have no power. I have no control over my life. Here's where the rubber met the road, and I didn't like the outcome. Who can I become? What do I need to become to have the outcome that I want? It's not guaranteed, but who will I become to achieve what I want to achieve? That loving relationship, right? Who do I gotta be? How do I gotta show up?
Welcome to Unlocking Potential. In this episode, I interview Forrest Lang. He's an author, a speaker, and a veteran. But more than that, he's a survivor. He survived repeated childhood trauma. He gained freedom from severe PTSD and addiction. In this interview, he tells his story. And I want to warn you, it can be triggering. If there are children around, I recommend you use headphones. He talks about how community and mindset helped him to not only survive, but to thrive. He truly is a man who has unlocked his potential. Forrest Lang,
How you
thank
doing,
you so
man?
much. Good. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I read your book. I listened to your book, your audiobook, and it was very powerful. It was triggering at times. It was sometimes just hard to get through the book. But at the same time, it was healing, and it really gave me a lot of hope for humanity and for people who are suffering in a lot of pain. People who are depressed, people who can't get out of bed, people who can't leave the house, people who are in fear. It was inspiring.
I'm grateful for that, man, because that is exactly the intention.
It was a lot to take in, and just imagining what you had to go through in your life is a lot to take in. So I guess at first I just want to thank you for writing that book and for sharing, for being so open and on your journey, and also for doing the work and overcoming those experiences and that pain, and not just surviving but thriving. So for those who haven't read the book and they don't know about your life, maybe just start at the beginning and just kind of let them know, uh, what things were like for you growing up as a
Sure.
child.
Um, yeah, I can do that. I hope that we get to have just conversation too, you know, um, on top of the storytelling. Um, because I don't really like to share repeatedly in very explicit detail things that happen just because it can be uh, like depressing. You know what I mean? Um, but I found earlier today a notebook that it's like this cool like leather bound notebook that I got in a leadership course in the process of writing Angel Blue. And one of the intents that I put in there is to manage the trauma of retelling because and especially in a public format because that can be different than sharing in the safety of a therapist's office or with a trusted friend, like sharing with the world. It's a different arena. And I want people to know that if they feel deep pain, if they've had traumatic experience after traumatic experience and maybe feel cursed or feel like there's not hope or things aren't going to get better, that A, they're not alone. B, we always have choice. We always have choice when we're grown, once we're grown up. And we can change the trajectory of our life after bad things have happened. I grew up in Southern California. Are you in the United States?
No, I'm in Canada.
Awesome, my Canadian brother.
Yeah.
Um, so I grew up in the United States in Southern California near Los Angeles, and my biological mother struggled with mental illness and poverty. And my childhood was, um, I wanted to be a grown up. I had a recurring dream that was a good dream that I was the last person on the earth. And it was a good dream to me because nobody was hurting me. And I was in a pretty consistent state of fear from a young age because my mother's moods flipped. There was physical abuse and neglect and sexual abuse due to neglect and abandonment. And I was exposed to uh, cameras and CSAM material, child sexual abuse material that I participated in at a very young age. And my older sibling kept doing that stuff through my childhood. My mother married a guy who I don't even think I don't think that my mother and stepfather were bad people. Um, and maybe that's something that I'm just working through. I don't think that I want to get revenge on them or punish them. And maybe it's because it was so long ago. And if I saw somebody doing what they did to me now, I would violently react. But I experienced beatings, lack of food, um, lack of safety and security, isolation from the world with religion as a weapon. And I started running away very young. And by the time I was 12, Child Protective Services had taken notice that I was a chronic runaway and began to intervene. And during this time that I was running away, I met what I thought was a safe adult. And this adult provided a sense of love and belonging for me. And I felt like this person cared about me because this adult would buy me clothes, take me to the movies, buy me good food. soda snacks. I care about you. I won't let anyone hurt you. And so I kept running away to that person. And that person ended up being a pedophile. And ultimately, I got placed with that person as my legal guardian. And when I was 12 years old, and when I got slightly older, that person began to become very envious of me. Um, I was entering high school. I wanted to go to the drive-in with the boys I met from school. I wanted to go to parties and go hang out with people, and that person was very envious and controlling. And by the time I was 16, there was consistent denial of food, shelter, basic needs, and consistent emotional abuse. And ultimately, that person tried to take away my life. And I survived and was able to get away. And at 16, I weighed 105 pounds. I was afraid all the time. I didn't trust people. Not that I didn't want to trust people, but I was just afraid people would hurt me or abandon me or be not good. I didn't think people were good.
Hmm.
And that was a scary place to be as a young teen with no shelter, no permanent residence. And I didn't trust protective services to go to them. I didn't trust the police. I had some friends from school who let me stay with them most of the time, but I wasn't like them. My friends my age, guys my age were chasing girls and interested in high school and normal stuff. And I just didn't feel very close to my peers. And I felt very alone. And I wished that I was dead. And I used alcohol as a way to soften those feelings. And I don't know that I fully realized the impact of being molested, physically beaten, and abandoned from as young as I can remember up until I was 16 until much, much later in life. I was just glad that I got away, and the after effects were all still there. So I was hopeful for the future. But I mean, I remember, obviously, I remember, I wouldn't be saying it. I went to a friend's house to take a shower, and I got in the shower and I just got heavy. I felt heavy, like the whole world was on me, and hollow and hopeless and empty, with just simple thoughts. How am I ever going to have an apartment? How am I supposed to go to college? How am I supposed to get a car? How am I supposed to do the basics when I feel on such an uneven playing field with those around me? And my biological mother remade contact with me. Like, she found me. She had moved away to another city. I went and stayed with her briefly, and then I joined the United States Navy. And I just I just wanted to forget. I didn't want to dwell on the past. I didn't want to dwell on my childhood. I didn't like to talk about it.
Mm,
And I wanted to be successful.
mm,
And I've always had a strong drive to be a successful person and be a
mhm,
good person. And I would find myself in situations that were physically dangerous, that were creating chaos and poverty, violence, addiction. And I didn't know how to get out of that. And I believed, because I didn't understand about child development and about how the brain develops and when the brain develops, I thought there was some external curse on me. Because that was the only way I could understand and explain why I escaped the foster care system, I escaped homelessness, and now here I am in the military where my needs are met, yet I'm still finding myself in a high-speed pursuit with the police chasing me and just doing dumb things that could sabotage and destroy my life. Why I felt so horrifically awful at the end of a relationship when I had my first couple relationships.
mhm.
What was wrong with me that was so devastating?
Yeah. Let's stop right there for a minute and just kinda go back and talk about that, because let's talk about, you mentioned this in the book, when your sibling first started doing what he did, how it affected your self-image.
Mhm.
And then since then, it seemed to carry through.
I believed I was ugly. I believed I was unworthy of love. I believed that there was something fundamentally wrong with me.
Mhm.
And what I wish, and I talked with multiple people in situations like this, to audiences, and I wish that I had a quick best-selling self-help book that has the one thing that works, that do this thing and everything will be okay. And I've found that to not be the case. And in my observation, things that happen fast oftentimes fade fast. And I believe that the truth is valuable, and that fellowship with other human beings is also valuable. And
Mhm.
it's difficult to have fellowship and closeness with other humans if we're not able to be transparent and tell the truth.
Mhm. There were a couple parts in your childhood that I picked up on, that where there were moments where you did find your power.
Mhm.
There were moments like when you told your brother to
Not doing
F
that stuff
off.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a time where, same with the, when you felt strong enough when you were 16, could to say no. So for whoever's listening, can you maybe talk about someone who might be going through something similar? Could you talk about the power of saying no, and, you know, should they, when should they stop keeping the secret, you know?
I have a hard time with laws around mandated reporting sometimes because the biggest fear that I had was not being believed. And I just thought nobody would believe me. I didn't have any, I didn't have much self worth and much self esteem. So I trusted my social worker enough that I would have told him. But I knew that as soon as I told him, immediately he would tell other people. And these other people that I don't know would maybe not believe me, maybe broadcast stuff that I'm humiliated about to multiple people. And I wish that there was a grace period for mandated reporters to have a little bit of time to get a child ready for disclosure to law enforcement and maybe help them feel like they have some power, because I didn't feel like I had any power at all, and I felt a mistrust of authority figures, and that the biggest barrier to me disclosing was being afraid that that person would just go tell a bunch of people. And
Mm.
if there was someone going through it now who was in a similar situation, I think it might be beneficial to tell somebody who's not a mandated reporter first. Somebody who um, would be able to support and guide and reassure and be there. And I don't know who that person is. My first thought is like a priest, but who knows with a priest, you know? It's a difficult.
Someone they could trust.
Well, I
They
think it's
thought they
more
could trust.
important to get away. I think it's
Mm.
more important to be able to get away from this person first,
Mm.
because there's a likelihood that if you're a kid going through that, there's a likelihood that you have a belief that this person cares about you and this person loves you, even though what they're doing doesn't feel right and is a secret and wrong and shame and all that stuff. But there's still that belief. And therapists disagree with me with this statement, but I think it's important that young child, that that person doesn't love you and they don't care about you. They never did. That was all just an act to steal from you. They are pretending to be a safe, caring person that cares about you and loves you so that they can steal from you. And there is a likelihood that this person may try to take away your life to keep you quiet.
Mhm.
And that's a hard thing to hear. And that's a hard thing to process, especially as a young person going through that.
Mhm.
But it's so important to get away. It, your life is valuable and is a precious gift. And there are people that will love you and actually care about you. And there is good in the world. There's good people in the world who have integrity, who have real love, who will love you back together in a healthy way. We
Mhm.
don't. get hurt all by ourselves, and we don't get better all by ourselves. And there was never anything wrong with you. There was never anything wrong about you.
Hmm.
And you are worth so much more than you know. And though maybe you do know. I don't know.
Mhm.
But I think it's pretty common for exploited children to feel like they're not valuable.
Mhm.
And there is a very strong possibility that you're going to get big and you're going to be free and you're going to be happy and you're going to be safe. And there's also a strong possibility that you could turn the hurt into power and that you could have a beautiful life beyond your wildest dreams in spite of that stuff, not because it happened. I don't believe that things happen for a reason to make us into the person we are. I don't believe that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I don't believe that at all. I believe that what doesn't kill you. And people can confuse discomfort and trauma. So discomfort can be good for us. Things that are uncomfortable, like going to the gym or meditation or learning a new hobby. Trauma is not good for us. If trauma was good for us, we would encourage that to make strong and good people.
Mm.
I would say that I believe you and you're not alone. And you absolutely matter. And you have zero responsibility, even if you ask them to do it. No responsibility if you're a child. And
Mhm.
I'm speaking from a global opinion, right? Humanity has decided that.
That's a great message. Could you speak a little bit to the shame that someone might feel after that has happened to them?
Yeah. I had a fear that was kind of even realized a little bit later on that my disclosure would somehow hurt people, that me talking about what happened would be damaging to innocent bystanders, this person's children, this person's friends, this person's family, and that is absolutely not the case. Any damage done was done by the perpetrator. They chose to ruin their family and ruin their career and ruin whatever social standing they had when they chose to touch a kid. The kid doesn't have culpability and responsibility in that. And the damage is already done. Disclosure only helps heal and it prevents that person from doing it to more people. And if you don't tell, you're not responsible either for whatever that person continued to do. You have zero responsibility. Disclosure helps because when we are able to tell the truth, we're able to be seen by other people, and other people who also have vulnerability will respond in the same way. And loving someone is really knowing them, knowing a person. And we can't love others, we can't let others love us if we're not able to let them know us and allow them to do the same.
Mhm.
And so having a catastrophic secret like that can make it difficult to feel less isolated.
Cool.
And it's catastrophic. It is a big deal. It's a huge deal. People will try to alleviate their own discomfort, take the power out of the wound. And the wound is significant and evil, unfortunately very prevalent.
Once you were old enough, you sort of landed joining the military, and it was probably the first time your basic needs were being met. But then you found yourself in this cycle of drinking and alcoholism, self-medicating. And one thing you seems like you did in the early days, you would just push down the
Mhm,
feelings, push down the shame, the anger, whatever it was, and just kind of stuff it down, cover it up. And that's where you found yourself in this cycle of drinking, promising to quit,
mhm,
trying to forget.
yeah.
How did you go get past that cycle?
I think that started with disclosing to a therapist that I was drinking a lot, and also disclosing that I had some childhood trauma. And as I knew would happen, as soon as I told this therapist that I had been abused in foster care, she picked up the phone and called the police immediately. And the police told her that I had to go to my hometown to report. And so I drove up from San Diego to Oxnard, walked into the police station, and said to a cop standing in the hallway, I need to make a police report. And the cop just, I was 21 years old, 20 or 21. He looks at me and he goes, well, about what? What's going on? I said, well, I got molested in foster care. And he said, well, by who? And I said, well, my foster mom. And he's like, what'd she look like? And the other guy standing next to him is like, why are you waiting until now to tell us? And I didn't have answers. That was the first time I had ever gone and like reported that to authorities. And they asked me her name and where she lived. And one of the guys wanted to know if she was good looking. And I drove back home and nothing ever happened. I never heard back from the police. There was never an arrest. And I think that was not very helpful.
Mhm.
um, and I had the message to me was it doesn't matter. That part of your story doesn't matter, but you are drinking quite a bit. So let's deal with drinking.
Mm.
And I got in a little bit of trouble and punched a police officer in the face while drinking and talking to that therapist about it. She wanted to know how much I drank and gave me like this assessment. And I said I lost track after 30 drinks in a night. And I went to an inpatient rehab center. And I didn't want to deal with and address what happened to me because I didn't think it mattered. I didn't think I mattered in that way. And I kind of put it in a place where maybe it just didn't happen. Maybe whatever. It was foggy. And it wasn't till much later after the war in Iraq that I had some good therapists who were able to pull back those layers and help me see where I am responsible for my life, even though the programming's not my fault. And I have choices that I can make to change my behaviors so that I'm no longer living in poverty, addiction, chaos, and violence. And so that I can have good relationships. And so that I can find peace and joy in life. But that took some time. So I started with the drinking part, and I was in and out of sobriety or recovery for a couple of years. And on November 4th of 2000, I got completely sober for the last time. And that was a pivotal time in my life because I think that elimination of anesthesia is ground zero for progress for somebody who's an alcoholic or an addict who has had trauma like that. And people will ask, well, why would people want to talk about that? Why do people even want to acknowledge? So for the first 8 years of life, that's our programming. Like our hard drive is programmed during that time. So I can forget about what happened all I want, but the training is there. So I'm trained to not value myself. I'm trained to not trust people. I'm trained to be afraid. I'm trained to live in shame. And something as simple as saying, I feel ashamed right now because I'm afraid that you don't like me to somebody who's a rad person can alleviate it. Just exposure. Shame's like mold. It just goes away once it comes out. Not every person, but good people.
It sounds like once you quit drinking alcohol, it really gave you the space and the presence to start processing those events from the past.
Not even the events, the after effects. I started with the
Mm,
after effects way before the events. And why
the
am I
emotions?
depressed? What? Yeah. Yeah. Why am I violent? Why do I want to beat people up whenever they're taller than me? Maybe I should stop doing that. Why do I punch myself? Maybe I should start sitting on my hands instead of punching myself in the head when I'm frustrated.
Mm,
And
mm.
these were, again, things I learned over the years.
Yeah, you
What?
mentioned allowing yourself to go through emotions rather than
Yes.
pushing them down.
And manage my reaction to them. Eventually, I'm to the place where I am now where I go, oh, I'm feeling anxious. And that creates a space between me and anxiety because I am not anxiety. Anxiety is something that I feel. Oh, I am having a thought that I should harm myself. Oh, look at that. I'm having a self harm thought. So I am not what I'm thinking. My thoughts are separate from who I truly am. And who I truly am is the same person that came out of the womb at 0 days old. There are no bad babies. Like we are born loving, curious, fun, funny, awesome, beautiful creatures.
Mhm,
And we have the choice to be that person again.
mhm.
It takes work and it's not easy.
If you're comfortable, I
You
wanted
want to
to
talk
talk
about Thomas?
I wanted to talk about Thomas.
Yeah,
And in a way, when I was reading the book and listening to the book, I perceived him as your greatest teacher.
still is.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And Thomas was a wonderful human being. And me and Thomas were playing with a firearm, and there was an accident. and Thomas died. And I will always regret that. Always. And I choose to regret that. I think it would be flippant to say somehow that was supposed to happen. People have said things like that to me. And Thomas doesn't get to be here. And he would be 48 years old, probably living his best life if that hadn't happened. Most likely. I mean, who knows? But my friend died right in front of me in a violent, horrific, awful way with a gunshot wound to the head. And part of a large part of his death is my responsibility, that I made bad decisions to play with a firearm. And not only was my teacher gone, my friend, my I didn't understand what severe horror was until that happened. That was the worst experience ever in my life. And I got arrested and put in jail and charged with first-degree murder. And there were a group of people, including the state of California, that believed that I had intent to hurt my friend. And there was absolutely zero intent to harm Thomas. I loved him. He was terrific, awesome, and valuable. And the accusation that I had any intent at all was brought forth in a trial, a jury trial, and I was acquitted by a jury of my peers a little over a year later. But I wasn't acquitted by myself for many, many years after that. And I didn't understand A, what forgiveness even was, and B, that I deserved it, and C, that I needed to do it. I didn't understand those things. And my life from the moment of his death up until over a decade later was all about atonement. I attempted to atone for the loss of Thomas's life, which can't be done. The only true atonement, I guess, would be suicide. But I had promised Thomas that I wouldn't do that.
Part of that meant putting your own life at risk.
Yeah, I had just gotten out of the Navy and I was going to art school when the accident happened. And then I was homeless for a while. And then the trial happened and I was fully expecting to go and do 5 years. My attorney expected that. I wouldn't plead guilty to voluntary manslaughter because I had to sign a statement that said that I meant to hurt him. And I didn't mean to hurt him. And saying that seemed worse to me than spending the rest of my life in prison. I couldn't say that.
You stayed true to yourself, even if it meant you could have spent
35 to life.
35 years to life in prison, but
Yeah.
you stayed true to yourself.
True to Thomas, too. And people who cause accidental death with firearms are one of the more judged people who are in accidents. If we cause accidental death with a car or uh, a piece of machinery, there's still some judgment, but there is a kind of outcasting that happens after that.
You lost a portion of your support community in the 12-step groups.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and a portion of anybody who knew. And still, when people know about that, but I've gotten to a place where I don't need anybody's forgiveness anymore. And it took a long time. I forgive me. I know I had no intent, and I love me. And I love Thomas, and I honor his memory still, but I don't need to atone anymore. It's futile. There's no atonement. And forgiveness is simply clearing away resentment and abandoning revenge. It doesn't mean that it was okay. It doesn't mean that that should happen again. It doesn't mean that I don't have regret.
There was something you mentioned. Now I'm putting the pieces together, realizing that this is probably part of that atonement. When you mentioned the passage from the AA book, the 12 and 12, put spiritual life first. Could you talk a bit about that?
Well, I think that had more to do with me figuring out that I was going to live because I went back in the military. I was a hospital corpsman, which is a Navy medic, and I got assigned with an outstanding group of infantry Marines, the Marines of Lima Company 324. We headed into northern Iraq, and I was pretty sure at the beginning of that deployment that I was going to atone, that I was going to have an opportunity to give my life in some heroic, awesome way so that I could be remembered as hospital corpsman third class Forrest Lang, who gave his life to save a fellow Marine instead of this guy that is homeless and accidentally killed his best friend. I just wanted to be remembered better. And I think about maybe 2 months into our deployment, I decided there was a very strong possibility that I was going to survive in spite of my best efforts to put myself into a situation where I was able to save somebody and then go away at the same time. And I was reading in one of the 12-step books because I'm like, okay, I'm alive. I'm probably going to live. What am I going to do? Am I going to stay in the military? Am I going to go back to being homeless? Am I going to join some kind of paramilitary organization? Am I going to attempt to go to art school? What am I going to do? And I was reading this part in one of those books that said most sober people are of above average earning potential and successful, provided that they find a way to exchange love and service with others. It was something like that. And I'm walking in the desert and I just said it out loud. What am I supposed to do to exchange love and service with other people? And 2 months later, I was tattooing. And it wasn't even my idea. That just happened, which is almost unbelievable that be able to tattoo in a combat zone with a group of infantry Marines and have it co-signed by like everybody. Reservists, maybe because they were reserves that we got away with it. But when I did my first tattoo, it was the word strength down the calf of Lance Corporal Chad Beverly's leg. He's an outstanding dude. That guy is cool, man. I love that guy. But he wanted the word strength. And that was the first tattoo that I did. And when I laid that stencil on and was figuring out this machine and keeping everything clean, and I mean, I was so in it that I was like, wow, I found something that brings joy to me and to the person receiving it. And that became my purpose. I got home from the war. I was tattooing full time. My daughter was born, and I discovered what unconditional, unbreakable, absolute love was when she was born. And I just worked hard on my trade, on my craft, and stayed sober. But I was still unknowingly creating poverty, addiction, chaos, violence in my life. I was unable to trust my partner enough to be faithful to her. I gaslit people. I was unpleasant to those that I couldn't mentally and physically dominate. I felt that I needed to be in control. I had bad dreams, which I still do, but I don't get up and prowl around the house anymore with a hunting knife or a rifle. And I had very severe flashbacks for a long time from childhood, from Thomas's death, and from the war. As an American combat veteran, I got access to a lot of therapy and personal development. And over the years, I began processing from the war backwards with these therapists. And I would gloss over, yeah, I went to foster care, and then I was homeless, and then I got in the military. And these therapists were like, wait a minute, what? Wait, you were homeless? How old were you? 16. Okay, well, why? Well, because my foster parent tried to kill me. Why? Because my foster parent was sexually abusing me. And we worked backwards, and it wasn't like a bulldozer going through that stuff to come to peace with it and learn how to live with it. It was like an airplane flying over, circling over, and getting lower and lower and lower because I was unable to process how I can now back then,
Mm.
because I built resilience, because I built self-esteem, because I built these things slowly. I built my mind, body, and spirit, and I never got over it, and it never went away. I got bigger, and I'm bigger most of the time. There are still some times at 48 years old where I struggle with some depression and um, racing thoughts, bad thoughts, um, anxiety, irritation. But it's just one more dusty alley up against another gunslinger. And I know I've been here before, and I know I'm going to win.
You mentioned that you've been collecting tools over the years to help process these things, these feelings, these events, memories, dreams. Um, you at one point you had uncontrollable screaming episodes,
Mm.
pretty serious PTSD symptoms. So, what have you discovered that actually works?
So the things that help me the most today are 10 things practiced on a regular basis. 5 pillars of self-care: eat, sleep, medical care and hygiene, exercise, and self-love or hobbies. So I practice those on a regular basis. And then the 5 pillars of servant leadership: service, some kind of physical service to something bigger than myself or other people, something that benefits other people; study, reading books or listening to podcasts or having conversations that are of, I hate even to use the word spiritual, right? So, not every day, thought, philosophy, um, spirituality, psychology, contribution, giving a portion of what I have, some portion of it, to somebody who does work that I support. Affirmation, saying things out loud. So whether it's prayer, praying to a God, or declaring, this is going to be a good day. I got this. Everything's all right. The sun's out. It's a good day. No, 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 we're not going there, mind. And I'll say it out loud. I am good. I am worthy. I am positive. I'm talented. I'm handsome. I'm robust. I have vitality. I am lovable. I say these things out loud because there's a part of my brain that will believe anything I say out loud. So if I just repeat thoughts out loud, I don't know about you or anyone listening, but I have all kinds of gnarly thoughts all the time that they're not me. They're not what I want to put into the world. They're not what I want to receive. So I get to choose what I give power to by saying it out loud. And then acknowledgement. So acknowledgement is saying out loud to myself or to others or to things what I car, I appreciate you. You run. You get me where I need to go. I'm grateful for you. Wife, I love you so much. You bring so much joy and light to my life. And I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky. And I found that when we practice acknowledgement, gratitude comes into play. It's the way to practice gratitude. And those 10 things mostly.
Mm.
Meditation is a very powerful tool where it's the mirror to affirmation. Affirmation is talking, meditation is just listening and
Mm.
observing, being the observer, which is a power position. I look at road rage as a sign of spiritual infancy.
Mhm.
And there's things that I can spot where I'm just, if I'm being reactive without thinking, without pausing, especially when agitated or doubtful or fearful or excited, for me, it's an automatic go to now. I've been practicing meditation for over 10 years and it's become automatic. I still will sit in complete stillness and hold my body still and just be aware of my senses, but it's become a go to and a terrific benefit, especially for trauma survivors who may be unusually reactive. And I also gave up on being normal. I used to want to be normal so bad. I didn't know why I couldn't just be normal. And the idea of being normal now just sounds so boring to me. I am not normal, and that's okay.
You mentioned in your book you had some pretty interesting insights during meditation. One of them being everything that you need is within yourself. Could you speak to that?
Well, not everything. So I need food. I need friends. I need mental nourishment and all that stuff. But the stuff that I need to feel okay in a moment when I'm fed, I have shelter, I have community, I have friends, I've got enough money to pay the bills and all that, right? So that we have this myth in Western culture that if we can work hard and find a career and buy a house and have 2 kids and have X amount of dollars in the bank and the right car and the right clothes and the right friends, that we'll feel okay. And those things are great, but we can have all of those things and still feel anxious, alone, lonely, disconnected, unhappy, depressed. And so the thing that I need when everything else, all the other needs are met, that's in me. That's in me. And I call it source energy. Some people call it God. Some people call it oneness. But if I'm able to sit in a yard the way my dog does, my dog is just so connected to God that he's not worried about what anybody thinks of him. He's not worried beyond being hungry right now where his next meal is going to come from. He's not concerned about the bills. He's not concerned that he's unlovable, right? He's just existing. And when we
Mm.
can reach peaceful existence, that's where joy is. And that comes from within. People try to find it from gurus and teachers and religious leaders. But if I'm only getting it from that person's not going to be around me 24 hours a day and it's fleeting. But I can find that within myself. And then when we practice study, like listening to a podcast or reading, it becomes familiar because all of this stuff is coming from the same pool. And then we can add our gifts to it. And the gift that I currently get to add right now is to eliminate the culture that excuses her from the face of the earth, that this culture that shames and silences survivors of child sex abuse if the perpetrator was a woman. And it's a big one. And I get to fight that. And that's my gift right now, currently in this arena, in the arena of you, not necessarily with doing tattoos or raising my family or, the extra stuff, the altruistic stuff, because all children get to have body autonomy. It's their human right, regardless of a gender of a perpetrator. And, people say, well, yeah, boys need it. Well, what about the girls that happened to from a woman? Like all children, all of them get to grow up with body autonomy intact. And that may or may not happen in my lifetime, but I believe that humanity will figure that out.
What are you creating for your life now moving forward? And you mentioned that that's one of your goals to spread this new message. Is there anything else?
Oh, yeah, I'm just getting started, man. I'm gonna bench press
Awesome.
400 pounds. I'm gonna scuba dive in the Philippines. I'm going to raise my son. I'm gonna build my business. I'm gonna write a couple more books. I'm working on the second Angel Blue book. Um,
Oh,
I
wow. Okay.
I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff. Dude, I feel young. I'm 48, and I don't know how sensitive your audience is, but for guys, I feel like our 20s last until we're about 40, and then our nuts drop again, and we start to, like, have deeper realizations and really enjoy life more, and whatever the equivalent of that is for women is probably true too, that,
Mhm.
um, I'm really enjoying my life, and I used to feel like if I didn't have something negative propelling me, that I wouldn't seek purpose and achieve. And one of the things that I found out and discovered after I got away from poverty, homelessness, chaos, all that stuff, right? When I had enough of a buffer in my life in Western culture that I know the bills are paid, I know I have a place to sleep tonight. I'm pretty confident I can keep that up. I know I'll have food to eat. I know that my family's provided for. And even beyond that, I found that the desire to move and walk in purpose and do good things never went away and never lessened it. In fact, it increased because I have more energy. I have more energy because I'm not struggling to climb out of a pit, and I'm still climbing, still walking, still enjoying, still able to be someone I'd be proud of at 5 years old and someone I'd be proud of the day I take my last breath. Those are the two people that I care what they think about me.
If you feel that you have unlocked potential waiting to be released, like you know what to do, but why don't you do it? And if you could just clear your emotional barriers, then you could finally take action. If this sounds like you, then check out our resource page at unlockingpotentialpodcast.com.
Truly. Now, obviously, I care about my friends Stank and my wife and my kid, but truly, that's who I model my life to please.
I did want to touch on grief.
Mm.
Throughout the book, you lost many friends, and grief seems to be one of the toughest emotions for people to process, to
Mm.
to get complete with?
So back in the day,
Mm.
when the Romans used to go fight in wars, and wars were gnarly then. I mean, not that they're not gnarly now, but they were fighting with swords and spears and bows and arrows and going to fight with people they'd known their whole lives, their brothers, and they would lose people. And before they left, they used to break a stick in half and they would leave a stick behind and tie one to the inside of their shield. And they became not human and they went and fought their war. And then when they came home, they put the stick back together. And symbolically, that meant it was okay for them to feel now. And they wept and cried and shook and looked at the sticks that were just left there with no rejoining. And they spent time grieving, actively grieving. And then once the grief's out, it's out. And I think we've been trained today to push away grief, to compartmentalize it, to not feel it, to not shake and scream and cry. And so therefore, it just comes out a little bit at a time over prolonged periods and it's torture, absolute torture. So when I am in grief, if I am grieving now, I do my best to feel the grief and allow it to come. Know that it's a hallway. It's not a it's not a house. And it's healthy to feel and process grief. I've also learned not to be a death collector. Many of my friends have died. Many people who had similar experiences that I have walked beside along the way have fallen. And the reality is, at some point, everyone I've ever known will pass. And I believe this is not the end. And I am sad and I feel sad for the people that aren't here for as long as I need to. But I also understand that I know a lot of people that are alive too. I know way more people that are alive than those that were their lives were cut short because of trauma, addiction, uh, post traumatic stress, depression, anxiety, suicide. And I think that as human beings, we've come to a place where we're able to meet all of our basic needs for the most part, especially in Western culture. Even people on the street have a cell phone. There aren't people starving to death on the streets. Like, even our worst case scenario looks pretty good to somebody a few hundred years ago in a famine. And, not everywhere in the world, of course, there's still famine and there's very real problems. But I think that our struggle today is a psychological struggle and a spiritual struggle because we've become a culture that is like constantly seeking comfort, constant comfort. And it's so bad for us. Drugs, what is that? It's just, I don't want to feel. I don't want to feel these things. I just want to be in this cocoon of drugs or whatever the thing is. And I view it the same way I would view personally in my life a medic during World War II on the beaches of Normandy. There's those I can help and those I cannot. And so if there's somebody I cannot, I'll move along to one that I can. It might sound a little bit harsh, but I do care about healing people. I feel called to do everything in my power to serve the highest good, especially of the outcast, fatherless, people who've struggled and felt thrown away. But we can't help everybody. And it's a great war. We're losing people daily. And I choose to focus on what I can do. And also to take care of myself. Because if I don't take care of this guy, if I don't practice those 10 things, eat, sleep, hygiene and medical care, exercise, self love or hobbies, service, study, contribution, affirmation, acknowledgement, then I'm not taking care of myself. And I'm not going to be serviceable to those around me.
By taking care of yourself, you are impacting the world. You wouldn't have been able to do what you've done so far and write this book and get your
Dude,
message out.
I just gave a TEDx talk in Scotland.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. Like, I'm in Scotland at this 800-year-old cathedral, like, giving this talk. I'm like, "How the hell did I get here?" That's
Wow.
awesome.
Wow. I'm going to look
And
for that.
I'm just getting started, man. And
Nice.
it's fun, and I still get to, like, grow and, you know, learn how I wanna show up.
Hmm.
And the thing that I would like to just say again is that it was never my fault, like that early stuff. It wasn't someone's fault. Like, fault and blame is not a power position, right? And I like to be in a power position. So, responsible, right? From the moment I stepped out of my last foster home at 16 years old, I became responsible for my life. I took responsibility of my life. Now, I was pretty young, and the odds were kind of stacked against me. And it's not that I messed up or whatever, but I became responsible, and I'm still responsible today. Not for what happened, but for what I do in my life today. That's a power position. Not it's my fault, it's my responsibility. And what can I do to improve this situation?
Hmm.
Tactically,
You
where
chose
is
to
the
be empowered rather than become and let the victim become your identity.
absolutely? And
Hmm.
I think that specifically childhood trauma survivors have a tough time with that word victim because it's almost become a bad word. But if I steal your car, you're a victim of car theft. Like that happened. And you could be labeled as a victim of car theft. But nobody wants to be called that because of some personal development that uses the term victim mentality. And then the term victim mentality is weaponized by abusers too. That if somebody comes forward and says they were abused, they're like, "Oh, stop being a victim." Right. So I really like the term defeated versus empowered. What's my mindset? Is my mindset from a place of defeat, or is my mindset from a place of power? And you can replace those interchange just because that was hard for me to wrap my head around. I thought that those trainers and those people that are in the development arena were telling me that it was my fault because I was being a victim, right? I did, and I've always been a slow goer. I'm not a scientist, right? Like, I takes me a while to grasp concepts, and that's not what that means. What that means, the defeated mindset is, oh, everything's happening to me still today. Poor me. All these things are happening to me. I have no power. I have no control over my life. Every relationship I end up in is bad, and that's just the way it is. And I'm just not worthy of a good job. Like, the other guy always gets the promotion, and blah blah blah. Whatever the thing is, and instead, I could look and say, okay, so here's where the rubber met the road, and I didn't like the outcome. Who can I become? What do I need to become to have the outcome that I want? It's not guaranteed, but who will I become to achieve what I want to achieve? That loving relationship, right? Who do I
Hmm.
gotta be? How do I gotta show up to have that loving relationship with my wife? Who do I gotta be to be a good father? Who do I gotta be to be a successful businessman? What knowledge do I need to acquire and question and be curious about these things?
That's awesome. I love that. And I love that, you know, using the word defeated versus empowered to have dissolved that conflict that comes up when we use certain language. One last question. Uh, tell us a little bit about the Blue Angel and how that threads through the book.
Dude, have you heard of Vox? Andrew Vox?
I have not.
I just found out about him really recently. Um, I use the Blue Heart pretty consistently. He was a child advocate, and he passed away sometime around 2015 or so. And this dude was like a lawyer, and ended up running a juvenile detention facility. And afterwards, figured out how many of these kids had just horrific pasts and became legal guardian. No, what's it called? A law guardian for children in New York. And he wrote a bunch of books. His characters are very often what he calls children of the secret. So children who had very significant childhood trauma and never got any justice. So, anyways, this dude had a tattoo of a blue heart on his hand. And I'd never met. I mean, it's just crazy. So I'm probably sound nuts. I don't care. I went on a trip on my motorcycle and I brought a book to read that I had gone into a bookstore, some hippy dippy bookstore, just to get a book to read. And this was in 2015, right after I had attempted suicide and then gone and done this initiation process that like taught me how to meditate. And I started to question everything in my life. And I'm sitting next to my motorcycle reading this book and I don't like the character. She's 17. She's driving like a fancy car, honking the horn to get the boy to let her out of the mansion. And she's drunk and high and just like seems like kind of like a spoiled. And she shoots out onto the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu, crashes into a highway patrol officer, goes to the hospital. They send her home and she's overdosing on opiates. I'm just sitting there reading this book next to my bike in the desert. I'm like, whoa. And then she takes a bunch of pills and starts overdosing and overhears her mother and father making fun of her, deciding whether or not they should kill her. And then she sees the Blue Angel, and the Blue Angel takes her hand the same way the Blue Angel had taken her hand and taken her out of her body when her adopted dad was raping her as a child. And I was just like, whoa, because I remembered when something took me away. There were times when I just was not in my body, when bad stuff was happening when I was a little guy, when Thomas died. There were just times where I just wasn't there. It was too much and I was disassociated. And I'm just, whoa, sitting there looking at this book. And I look next to my bike, my assault pack sitting there in my backpack. And it's the one I carried around in Iraq with all the necessary stuff, right? Not comfort stuff, like necessary life or death medical equipment. And I saw a piece of paper in the little plastic sleeve where my name tag would have been. And then I'm like, okay, so I pull this piece of paper out and I open it, and it's a note from my daughter with a Blue Angel watermark. It said, Grace T. Dad loves you with moons and stars all over it. And in that moment, I believe that my daughter was there before I was born. But angel blue or the Blue Angel means disassociation. That's a long explanation for it, but it means when we go away because the things were so bad. And sometimes the Blue Angel can be great, other times not so much.
Like even during the moments where we feel completely alone, like everything is against us, then something like that happens and the Blue Angel shows up. And it's almost like we never are completely alone and completely abandoned. There's always something there.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Thank you so much for coming on and telling your story and sharing everything. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we stop? Definitely.
So if you want to read Angel Blue, A Song of Redemption, it's available anywhere you get audiobooks and also on Amazon. If you want to, in Canada, it's pretty hard to get signed copies from my website. I can't ship internationally, but you can get it from Amazon in Canada. If you want to join us in the Angel Blue community, my Instagram is Forrest Lang Official. And I'm also on all the other social medias on Facebook as Angel Blue Book. And I'm on YouTube and TikTok and all those things. And if you have any inquiries, you could send me a message at angelbluebook.com. And thank you so much for allowing me in your space and for holding the space together with us, with this wonderful man, Doug. And thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Congratulations. You made it to the end of the podcast. That means something. But the journey isn't over yet. Join me at unlockingpotentialpodcast.com and let's keep going. See you there.